No, actually not. Well, they sometimes show us as an example for peace, but that's the only maybe notice that they have of the village, yeah.
Yeah.
And so, how does the village function?
Well, the village functions mostly from donations from our friends around across the world. As we said, we have a few institutions, the school, the primary school where Nadine and I went to, and the School for Peace. So each organization has to, it depends on donations from other people. Like for the school, it's a bilingual, binational school. Each classroom has 2 teachers, one Arab Palestinian, one Jew. So they each talk in their own language, so the pupils will learn both Arabic and Hebrew. So it is expensive. It's a different curriculum for other schools.
On a more personal level, how long have you been in the village?
Well, I've been in the village all my life. I was born there. My family is one of the second family to arrive to the village. I don't know how they decided to live there. As Nadine said, it was a bare hilltop with nothing there. Only one family was living there, but they decided that their children will grow up differently. Both my parents are from Haifa, which is a mixed city of Arabs and Jews, but my mother and father never met anyone who was Arab until they went out of high school. The communities are very segregated communities, so they said, no, our children will have a different education. We want them to learn more narratives. We want them to meet maybe the other side and to grow up in a different way.
And what do your parents do?
Well, my father is a physicist in the Tel Aviv University, and my mother actually is the founder of the Institute of the School for Peace, and she's running it right now. The School for Peace is an organization who does bring groups for dialogue, Israeli, Arab, Palestinians from the West Bank, and Jews to come together and discuss maybe the most painful issues that are happening in Israel, and to make it a dialogue so they can learn about the other side.
I was born in Berlin. It's quite random. It has nothing to do with who I am. My father was there doing doctorate studies. He's a psychologist. And when we came back from Berlin, we moved to East Jerusalem as well, and lived there until we moved to Wahat al-Salam, Neve Shalom. My parents wanted us to grow up equals. They wanted us to grow in a safe place. They didn't want us to go through the same experience they went through. They lived in their segregated communities and didn't meet anybody from the other side until university, and they didn't want the same thing to happen to us. They wanted us to meet Jewish children. They wanted us to know the Hebrew language. They didn't want us to, they wanted us to be open-minded and aware of the world around us.
Both of you went to the primary school. Tali, tell us something about the primary school.
Well, I went to kindergarten in the village, and where I learned the Arabic language as well as my language, the Hebrew language. And I learned about my own holidays, about the Christian holidays and the Muslim holidays. So I had a lot of holidays in kindergarten. And then
it must have been one long holiday.
No. And then I went to the primary school, where 90% of the children that come to the primary school are from outside the village, because we are a small community. And that's the first time that I realized, because I met other children, that, well, something is special about this village, because most of the Jews that came to the village, it was the first encounter with Arab children, or the first time that they learned something in Arabic. So it was very special for them, but for me it was like, this is what I'm used to. So it was a kind of a shock for me to realize that where I live is kind of special. And it's a very big part of my childhood, the primary school, where I met also Nadine. She can...
Yeah, well, actually we met a little before primary school, because I moved to the village in the summer of 2000, right before the second Intifada. And I lived right across the street from Tali. Our parents introduced us to each other, and I didn't know a single word in Hebrew. And Tali spoke Arabic and Hebrew mainly, some English. My strong languages were English and Arabic. So we spent hours playing together, not really understanding what we were saying to each other. So that was the first time that I met a Jewish kid, actually.
And you went to the primary school as well?
Yes, I did.
And you learned Hebrew as your equal first language?
Yes.
Would you say?
Yes, I did. I mean, when I came to the village, I knew English and Arabic, and I not a single word in Hebrew, not even yes or no or hello. I didn't even know the basics. And it was a shock for me at first. And the entire life in the village were so different from East Jerusalem, where I grew up. It was a green place, a nice place, a safe place to be around and to be outside and, you know, without worrying about anything. And the primary school, it was the first time to suddenly hear this strange language and learn it in class. It took me a few months to catch up, and, you know, I became fluent in the Hebrew language.
And tell us about the teaching methods. How many teachers are there to each class?
Well, each class has two teachers. When we're talking about the home teachers, there's one Jew and one Arab. So the children are constantly exposed to both languages. Children who start in the kindergarten, by the time they reach the first grade, they're fluent in both Arabic and Hebrew, and they can speak it like it's their first language. Mm-hmm. And that's how it is in all subjects, actually, not just their home class. All subjects are taught in both languages, so the children are constantly learning both languages. And as you know, when you learn a new language, it opens up doors for you, doors to cultures and you know, a whole entire world.
There are problems at the moment, are there, with the teachers, the salaries of the teachers?
Well, it is more expensive to have a school that each class has 2 teachers to teach the children. It does take more funds to create such an environment, and Nadine can tell you more because her mother is a teacher in our primary school, so it is hard to substand maybe such a school. Yeah.
It is. It's one of the expensive institutions in the village, because while it's expensive to run this institution, it's important for us to keep it going no matter what are the financial costs, because almost 200 children are in the school, and we don't want them, you know, it's an important educational system that they won't get anywhere else if our school is shut. So actually in the past, the biggest problem is keeping the salaries going and keeping the school open for all children who want to and are able to come to the school, busing them in. So it's a constant struggle for the school.
Overall, would you say it was a happy experience, primary school?
Yeah, I remember it as a happy time for me.
Happy and easy. I think for most of the children who go to the school, even the children who aren't from our village, it's the most profound experience in their life. It's the experience that shaped their lives and their future. Yeah. And this is something that they have said over the years. We've had people from the village wrote a book and interviewed children who graduated from the school and are now in their mid to late 20s. Mm-hmm. And they asked them about their experience and how it has affected their lives, and they all said that it has been the most profound. It has affected their entire life and what they do in life.
But there must be times when there is great tension, when there is disagreement about things that are affecting the outside world. For example, the excursion into Gaza and matters of that sort. First of all, are there problems when that happens?
Well, naturally there is tension. There is tension all around us. We do talk about these things, each family in their own family and together. Well, every person has their own opinion and political opinion. We're not like the same, and that's what makes us special.
Nadine, what about you? What are your experiences when this happens?
Well, naturally it does create tensions, as Tali said, and well, there's not really much more to add, but on the other hand, even though we're all with different opinions and we really can't agree on much in that sense, but we do have a committee, for example, that is in charge of making a statement or replying to things that are happening outside. I'm talking on a committee on the village level, and what they do is if there are acts of violence going on around us, wars or price tags like we had in our village, the committee members meet and they decide how we will respond. Will it be a written statement to the media, to the public? Will we go to a protest, and so on and so forth? Mm-hmm.
So overall, has growing up in the village been a positive experience?
I think it's been really the most shaping experience of my life, and I really can't imagine where I would be right now if I had stayed in East Jerusalem or wherever my parents would have moved on if it hadn't been for the village.
Tali?
Well, I have to say exactly the same words. I feel that it's completely shaped who I am.